Well, here we are again. I'm going to do a quick answer to any challenge toward Christianity. This one will be a little different. It's not so much a challenge. It's something I'd like Christians to consider, and that is to think of the Bible as reality rather than just a book of stories. That it really happened. There were people who had dirt under their fingernails, who really got dusty, who walked the ground, who interacted with a lot of different cultures. And so I'd like to give a view of the Bible kind of like from 30,000 feet. So this quick answer will be on the Old Testament, and we'll do one on the New Testament. So the key is that this really happened. This is real stuff. And so first thing I want you to think about is the setting. You have something called the Fertile Crescent. Pick up a map sometime and take a look. To the east, you've got Mesopotamia. Then you've got a land route that went up, so it wouldn't go through the desert. It went up and came down the Mediterranean to Egypt. And so you have these two civilizations that interacted with each other, and you've got poor little Canaan, the land of the Israelites, in the middle there. And so when you had two powerful kingdoms, somebody in Mesopotamia, like let's say Assyria, you got the Egyptians, constantly struggling and clashing with each other. Sometimes one would raise up super strong and become a superpower of some kind, like Assyria did, and it would come all the way across there and crush anything in its way and knock off the Egyptians or whatever. And poor Canaan is in the middle, and they would often have to decide, oh, who do I side with here? If you choose wrong, you're hauled off to captivity, which of course later happened. So I want you to think about this land, and it plays such a role as far as those two kingdoms on each side as they grew powerful or as they lessened in their strength. So let's start with Genesis. Again, so many things we could say about Genesis. Just for now, Genesis presents a new kind of God. This is not the kind of gods that you encounter in other Mesopotamian stories or later on in the Greek stories. This is a rational God. This is a loving God. This is a God that would inspire science to be done. This is a God that would inspire creativity. And so we'll just leave it at that. Let's move to Exodus. In Exodus, you've got archaeological evidence for the land of Egypt being the host, and then later on the enslavers of the children of Israel. Do you know there's actually some archaeological evidence? But take a look at my extended video for things like that. So you have the land of Egypt. Becomes a powerful place that's kind of a lure over the years for people to go to Egypt. And when they go there, they get themselves stuck. They get entrapped. They get enslaved. But they come out of slavery. Powerful story of the Passover. They go into the land of Canaan. And do you know there are actually some letters that we have from Canaanite rulers back to Egypt saying, help us, we're being invaded. And it's this right time period for the children of Israel. And we can't prove it's them, but I think that's interesting that we have those letters. Then we get the Judges. And don't think of Judges like modern day judges with wigs and gavels and things like this. These are charismatic tribal leaders. And the whole book of Judges is cyclical. The children are doing fine, and then here comes some terrible group and enslaves them, and they're in misery, and they call out for a deliverer, and a judge comes along, some kind of charismatic leader, gets them out of that trouble, and they say, thanks so much, and they dust themselves off, and they go right back into everything's fine, and they fall into sin, they fall into pride, and back into some problem with some neighboring tribe. So we see that over and over again. It doesn't get anywhere. Eventually the people call out, we need a king. We want to be like everybody else. So here come Saul and David and then Solomon. And so the kingdom is established. And David is an interesting character, isn't he? So much is devoted to him in the Old Testament. He was a man after God's heart. He was a warrior. He was a poet, political leader, amazing individual. His story is just fascinating. But the kingdom doesn't hang together very well. You've got a lot of jealous tribes that are struggling with each other, and it snaps apart. And the northern part is called Israel, and the southern part is called Judah. Kind of confusing. They used to be called Israel altogether, but now it's the northern 10 tribes, and then the southern 2 tribes are called Judah. Well, once they're split, they're a little bit easier pickings, and now out of the east rises one of those big Mesopotamian empires. This one's called the Assyrian Empire. And they come down and they take away the 10 tribes in the 700s BC, and they just scatter them. And nobody really knows what happened to them. They moved in other groups of people. And so now 10 tribes are gone, you got little Judah hanging on. But they don't hang on for long. In the 500s, the Assyrians are replaced by the Babylonians. Good thing they did this alphabetically, huh? Assyrians, Babylonians, and then Persians. Okay, not ABC, but pretty good. In come the Babylonians, and they haul off to captivity the last 2 tribes. And that's it for the kingdom there. It's really sad. The prophets come along the scene now, and they warn the people, and they offer hope to the people. They say, get your act together. You're here because you disobeyed God. You had that Sinai agreement that you made with God, and you broke it. And so God's punishing you, but he won't punish you forever. You'll come back to the land. We get some hints of that in Ezekiel and other places. You'll come back to the land. The Messiah will come. There's all these wonderful things that are promised. Persia comes along then in the 500s, and they're a little bit more enlightened religiously, and they say if you want to go back to your land, you can. And this is the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. So some, not all, but some people come back, and the land is a mess. Jerusalem is a mess. Walls are shattered, and they start rebuilding. And so that's pretty much the end of the Old Testament with these people looking forward to a Messiah. And we'll pick that up when we take a look at the New Testament.